Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this really powerful story about what it truly means to be successful. It's all about this one guy who thought he had it all figured out. Spoiler alert, he didn't. So, before we jump in, let me ask you something. What's your definition of success? I mean, really, is it that corner office with the big title? The fancy house? The fast car? Because the man in our story, he thought he knew the answer. And believe me, he was on the fast track to getting every single thing on his list. And this was his blueprint for life, right? The one so many of us are basically taught to follow. Prestigious office? Check. Luxury car and a mansion? Double check. He was ticking every single box. He even became the absolute star of his company, nabbing top employee 2 years in a row. I mean, by any standard you can think of, this guy was winning. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This kind of success, well, it came with a really steep price tag. The closer he got to that mountaintop he was climbing, the more he looked around and realized he was totally alone. And the first cracks in his perfect little world didn't come from some huge explosion. Nope, they came as a series of quiet, almost whispered, and totally devastating warnings. So that whole world he'd built so carefully, it started to just unravel. And it all happened through these unavoidable gut punch messages from the people closest to him. His mom, his partner, his colleagues, and yeah, even his boss. Okay, so the first red flag comes from his mother. And it wasn't like she was angry. It was this quiet, sad kind of worry. He'd been using the "I'm too busy" excuse for 3 years. Her point was just so simple but so sharp. If you don't have time for your own mom, who on earth do you have time for? Next up, his partner, and she went even deeper. She pointed out that he'd stopped giving his actual talent, his unique gifts, his time, his heart, and instead he was just throwing money at things. It was like he'd lost his soul, swapping out a real desire to help with just an easy, impersonal cash transaction. Then a colleague pulls him aside, basically seeing the burnout coming from a mile away. He told him, look, this pace you're on, it's totally unsustainable. Life is a marathon, right? But this guy was treating it like a 100-meter dash, just a desperate all-out sprint. Sure, you might look good for the first few seconds, but there's no way you're going to finish the race. And then, get this, the final and maybe most surprising warning comes from his boss. Yeah, the very person who was rewarding this crazy ambition. His boss saw all this amazing potential in him, but he was just sad that it was all being wasted on this narrow, relentless chase. He said he was like a racehorse with blinders on, just charging forward, completely oblivious to everything else going on around him. So, all these wake-up calls, one after another, they forced him to face a really important distinction. He finally realized he'd been chasing what you might call ordinary success. The higher salary, the better status, the fancy villa. But in that whole process, he was completely missing out on great success. The kind that's built on creating real value, finding true meaning, and actually living in harmony with the world around you. Okay, so if that old blueprint is totally broken, then what? How do you actually find this great success? Well, the story suggests the answer isn't out there somewhere. It's not about getting more stuff. It's about cultivating what's already inside you. It all starts by looking inward. This whole journey, it kicks off with something that sounds simple, but is actually pretty radical: self-belief. First step, just stop doubting yourself. You have a talent, a unique gift, period. Step 2, go to the people who genuinely value you, not your rivals, but your real support system, and ask them, hey, what do I do best? Their answers might just show you the gifts you've been completely blind to. It's proof that finding yourself isn't some solo mission. It's about learning to see yourself through the eyes of people who actually care. And this journey, it also demands a totally new way of seeing the world. It's about, and I love this phrase, using your heart's eye to find what's valuable in everyday things. It's about making sure your success means something to other people too, that it lifts them up. And at the end of the day, it's about having the guts to take the hard, unfamiliar road instead of the easy, crowded highway everyone else is on. And what this chart really drives home is that great success is never a one-person show. It's not a solo act. It's more like an ecosystem. It's built on this foundation of sharing, of love, of harmony, and real positive connections. It's a huge shift from trying to win against other people to learning how to win with them. Now, hold on. This doesn't mean you have to ditch your ambition. Absolutely not. The idea is to transform it into something the story calls a good desire. Think of it like this. It's a drive to succeed that doesn't just benefit you. It also helps other people and contributes something positive to the world. It basically purifies your ambition and turns it into fuel for something way, way bigger than just yourself. Okay, so all of this builds up to one final, really powerful idea. It's a metaphor for where our true talent is hiding. And honestly, it might just change the way you look at, well, everything. So picture this. The story says most of us live our lives inside a glass bottle. Inside that bottle, you follow the rules everyone else follows. You're constantly fighting for approval from others, and you're competing like crazy for just a handful of spots at the top. But true success, your real talent, it isn't in there. It's found outside the bottle. That's the space where you get to use your unique gifts, where you define success for yourself, and where you forge a path that no one's ever walked before. And that, right there, is the heart of it all. The whole point is to stop fighting for a tiny little spot inside that crowded, stuffy bottle. We're supposed to break out. Our real work, our true power, it's all about figuring out what makes us different and then building a life based on that, out there in the open. So it turns out that whole frantic chase for external success, for some talent you think is out there somewhere, it was always just a distraction. And the story leaves us with this final thought. What would you build? What kind of path would you create if you really truly believed that the world's greatest talent was already inside you, just waiting?